Very positive news for us Swedes. We have a large increase in our military spending that's being proposed. What is that all about? That's what we're talking about today. My name is Max Villman. I'm a former fighter pilot in the Swedish Air Force, and let's go. And it was yesterday, I'm filming this on September 12th, but it was yesterday, September 11th, where the Swedish government showed their new proposition to increase military spending even further. And between 2023 and 2024, we have an increase of about 28%, meaning that Sweden will actually reach NATO's goal already in 2024. NATO has a goal of 2% of GDP spending on the defense. And of course, this 2% is an arbitrary number, but it's to make sure that if everyone does this in the alliance, then the alliance will have a significant military capability. And it is very, very positive that we finally reached this number. Too late, of course, but it's better late than never. And if you compare to 2020, we will 2024 have more than doubled our military spending, which is, of course, very good. And if you look at the pictures here, the PowerPoint pictures from the presentation of the Swedish government, it's in Swedish, of course. You can all perhaps use a Google Translate if you want it. I will go through the highlights of this. And if you want to stick to the end, I will talk a little bit more about what I would use this money for if I was in charge, so to speak, seeing things a little bit more perhaps from the inside. And while you're here, before we go into the pictures, please do me a solid and give me a thumbs up, like the video, and subscribe to the channel. That helps me a lot. It doesn't cost you anything, but helps me grow the channel and reach more people. Thank you for that. So the government starts off by talking about its most serious security issue since the Second World War ended. Russia is prepared to take very, very high risks, both political and military. And of course, this is something that perhaps is not talked about so much, that Russia had lots of losses of materials and personnel, and of course they still continue to. But they will of course learn from this. They have learned from this. They have adapted. Their military capability will be coming back after the war, and they have increased their capability to build stuff, to produce stuff. They will have innovated a lot. So the Russia that will come out of this war, after a while, it will actually not, of course, be a bit stronger military. So we cannot just sit back here now and relax. Of course, in the short term, they have lost capability. They are tied up in the Ukraine. But in the medium term, they will come out of this with new capabilities when it comes to learning. They will have an officer corps and a corps of soldiers that have very, very much military experience from fighting a war. And this is not something that we can just take lightly and sit back and relax, of course, in the West. The Swedish government concludes that the biggest threat to Europe and Swedish security is or would be a Russian victory in Ukraine. And of course, this is just as if you look at the World War II, for example. If we don't stop these kinds of regimes that Russia is in their tracks, then if they get a military win, they see that the military means something that can be used further. And that, of course, increases the likelihood of war in Europe. A Russian general gave an interview a couple of weeks ago. I tweeted on this, so if you want to, you can follow me on Twitter. I would tweet a lot about these things, but he said basically that the Ukraine is just a starting point, and Russia sees the entire of Eastern Europe as their sphere of influence, and that they have so quote unquote lost it. So they want it back, of course. It's the biggest rearmament of Swedish defense since the 1950s. And here we have the years here on the x-axis and the y-axis. You have the spending in billion crowns. So by NATO's definition, we will reach 2% of GDP on the defense in next year. And the increase is quite large. And just a short reminder here, 2014, Russia invaded Ukraine the first time. And you see that we basically did not increase spending at all, which is a catastrophe that we are paying for now. But of course, we have awakened now, and that is at least that's positive. They continue to add more stuff, more money for the parts beyond that, and just so that we know we have given a very, very large quantity of materials and also training, etc. To Ukraine. So our stocks need to be replenished. So this is included in this, of course. So but I think it's money well spent, but something to just acknowledge. And I think this is very, very positive when it comes to my own views as well. The government here is talking about staff, personnel, so not staff, personnel, and basically attracting and keeping, retaining officers and soldiers and seamen, sailors, of course. Super important that we give our officers and our military personnel a good salary. This is something that we really need to look into more to retain our competency, because we spend billions of crowns training persons every year, but then a lot of them leave because the pay and the benefits are not adding up. And we will, when it comes to materials that we are going to buy, Archer, we gave a lot to Ukraine, so we need more artillery. And I think something that the war in Ukraine has shown us is that artillery is king. Artillery is the one system that creates the largest amount of losses in the enemy, so we need more artillery. Anti-tank things. We're talking about GBAD, ground-based air defenses, so we don't get shot up by attack helicopters, of course. And materials for working in the field with entrenchments and so on. And I mean, mining has come back big time in the war in Ukraine. Our Navy will modify our existing Visby corvettes. We will start building new corvettes. We are buying the new Gripen, the E version, and we're also upgrading our older Gripens, buying new radar stations for our territory. And this is something that perhaps has been given a bit focus, but we need to buy new stocks. We need to increase our stocks in qualified ammunition such as missiles and bombs and so on, of course, so that we have able to sustain a war that goes on beyond a couple of weeks. And something that's perhaps not talked about so much when it comes to NATO. Sweden will obviously be a huge host nation when it comes to basing NATO troops because of our geographical location. So logistics and host nation support is something that's not as sexy as tanks and fighter aircraft, but it's of course perhaps even more important. And this is just a sum up. So I think we'll end the discussion there, but I think what I hope right now is that we do not only focus on the big hard things, but that we instead focus on keeping our staff, our personnel, so that we retain them, so we give them enough training, and also that we have enough of the basic stuff such as personal equipment, handguns, all that, and also of course that we replenish the things that we have given to Ukraine, so that we have a credible threat. So it's better to have something a bit smaller that's more well trained and has a lot of ammunition and logistics behind it than something big that doesn't have all the depth that we need. So that's just my personal opinions, but I will end it there. Thank you so much for listening to me. You have my social media here. If you want to buy me a coffee, you have links to Ko-fi down below. And also, I have a newsletter which you can subscribe to in English. And please give me a like, subscribe to the channel as always, and share the video. But until next time, as always, fly safe.